The Queen of Pentacles is the most nurturing of the court cards and appears when you are dealing with the practical parts of life, such as caretaking, earning a living, taking care of your health, and creating a beautiful environment. Stay tuned and learn how to deal with this card when it shows up in a reading. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we are learning the tarot deck one card at a time. Today's card is the Queen of Pentacles. Most people find the court cards to be the most challenging part of the tarot deck, and I will do my best to demystify it here. I will be using the Rider-Waite tarot deck. You'll find the link to the deck below, as well as to the many books that I've used in my research. So let's get started. In simplistic terms, the Queen is the mother figure of the royal court. She's married to the king and they have 2 children. The page represents their young child, and the knight is their frat boy's son who is off to college, finding his way in the world and trying not to get into too much trouble. In the Middle Ages in Europe, kings came to power through conquest, election, inheritance, or some other kind of agreement. They ruled people and territories within their defined borders. Kings were leaders and the ultimate authority, and pretty much the buck stops here member of the royal court. They had great power due to their position, and everybody knew it. Queens also had power, but it was quite different. Most, but not all queens, married into power, and their role was a supportive one. She got what she wanted through understanding people and working behind the scenes to get what she wanted. The queen was the nurturer and caretaker of the kingdom. She has an inward maturity and was generally admired by the people in her kingdom. One of the reasons that court cards are challenging is that they can represent 3 things. The first is a person. Queens were considered to be mature women over the age of 30. Depending on your age, a queen could represent your mother, grandmother, adult child, romantic partner, boss, sister, or any other mature woman in your life. The second thing a queen can represent is a part of yourself that is nurturing. And the third thing that a queen can represent is a situation that involves a feminine-like energy of support. The queen could represent any kind of mature, nurturing person in your life, male or female. For instance, I have a lovely male dentist who is almost 70 years old. He is extremely kind and empathetic, and I would put him and his dental treatments in the category of a queen. So how do you know whether this queen represents a real person, a part of yourself, or a new approach to life? First of all, go by the question. If it still isn't clear, look at the surrounding cards and its position in a spread. Here are 2 things to keep in mind when we discuss the court cards. First of all, don't give much credence to the ages, gender, or physical characteristics. For instance, a queen is traditionally considered to be a woman who is over 30. Does that mean that she doesn't represent your lover who is 25 years old and male? No, it does not. Secondly, and most important, look at the energy from this card. Your level of maturity is not based on your age, and it can vary greatly in different areas of your life. We all know super mature people in their teens and very immature people in their 80s. You can also be mature in one area of your life, such as relationships, and totally reckless in another area of your life, such as finances. One of the easiest ways to understand the personality of each queen is to understand the chart on the screen. Each member of the court card's personality is related to 2 elements. Here's a quick reminder of what each element means. Pentacles are connected to the element of earth. It's all about things in the material world, such as our bodies, homes, nature, or how we earn our living. These people are very stable. They work hard and enjoy traditions. Wands is connected to the element of fire. These people tend to be feisty, confident, enthusiastic, adventurous, extroverted, passionate, flashy, and high energy. These people make good athletes and good salespeople. Cups are connected to the element of water. This card is all about emotions. Cups people are gentle, loving, sensitive, nurturing, and feel things deeply. These people make good healers and social workers. Swords is connected to the element of air. Swords is all about communicating and expressing ourselves. This includes our thoughts about ourselves as well as our thoughts about the world around us. This encompasses intelligence, knowledge, truth, mental clarity, and our sense of right and wrong. These people make good lawyers and writers. Each of the court cards is made up of two elements. The first element is related to their rank. On the column down the left, you can see that all pages are related to earth, all knights are related to fire, all queens are related to water, and all kings are related to air. Each member of the court card also has a suit, and along the top of the chart you can see the four suits. Pentacles are related to earth, wands are related to fire, cups are related to water, and swords are related to air. As you can see on the chart, the Queen of Pentacles is a combination of the water and earth elements. The rank of all the queens connects to water, which makes sense because they are the nurturing, emotional, mother energy of the court cards. The Queen of Pentacles is also connected to the suit of Pentacles, which is the element of earth. So we have somebody who is emotional, compassionate, and caring, but also very grounded. She is the kind of person who loves her kids deeply and is extremely dependable. Pentacles also take the long-term view, so she's not going to start crying because Jimmy isn't potty trained yet, and she figures she'll be sending him to college with a package of Depends. She will just remind herself that kids mature at different rates and just keep doing what she's doing. In the Queen of Pentacles, we see a queen sitting on an ornate gray throne. On the top of the backrest, we see a cherub surrounded by clouds. Lower down, we see pears. On the left armrest, we see a goat's head. She is leaning to her left and gazing at a pentacle on her lap. She is wearing a gold crown with something red on the top. There is a green head covering under her crown that is flowing down to the ground. The queen is wearing a white undershirt next to her body. Over top is a red gown and red shoes. She is sitting in a lush and beautiful garden. There is a rabbit in the lower right corner of the card. In the background, we see blue mountains. The sky is yellow. When the Queen of Pentacles appears in a reading, it can represent someone you know or a part of yourself that is warm, nurturing, and hardworking. The Queen of Pentacles is the most motherly queen with a huge heart. This card can represent someone who enjoys creating a loving home, taking care of people, and connecting with nature. When the Queen of Pentacles appears in a reading, it can indicate that you are dealing with the practical parts of life, such as raising a family, earning a living, taking care of your health, and creating a beautiful environment. Let's talk about the symbolism of the Queen of Pentacles. First, let's look at her throne. On the top of the throne, we see a cherub surrounded by clouds. Cherubs are basically low-level angels whose job is to protect her. Cherubs also look like children and can represent her nourishing nature. The fact that they are surrounded by clouds means that she does not see everything that is happening around them. The rest of the description of the throne are based on information that comes from Liz Dean in her book, The Ultimate Guide to Tarot, and Pam Richards in her book, Understanding Tarot. On the backrest, we see pears. Pears are symbols of fertility and long life and sacred to the Italian deity Pomona, goddess of fruit trees and the orchard. On the left armrest, we see a goat's head. The goat's head is a symbol for Capricorn, the Queen's zodiac sign. The goat also appears in the Devil card, which is card number 15, which is a symbol of excess. Goats can represent fertility, creation, and physical pleasure. Pam Richards notes that she is leaning away from the goat, which represents the material and logical side of creation. Instead, she is leaning toward the side of nurturing and love, but she can always lean back when she wants to embrace her more forceful, stubborn side. Let's move on to the color of the throne. It is gray, which is the color of neutrality. She is someone who makes fair and balanced decisions. The Queen is wearing a gold crown with something red on the top. Honestly, I can't tell what it is. Some authors say that they are bull horns, and others say it is a bird's wing. Bull horns would demonstrate that she has a stubborn streak. Pam Richards believes that this is a dove. Doves are symbols of peace, hope, and devotion. If it's a dove, then the wings are red, showing a desire for peace. Pam points out that we can see 5 purification alchemy symbols on her crown. To quote her, she says that these symbolize purity in action. 5 is a number of communication and curiosity, so this is a mind that talks in terms of how to make the best of who you are with a commitment to being the best you can be in the real world, unquote. I also wanted to share what Pam had to say about the green head covering. Quote, she has a green head covering under her crown, showing her to think in practical, healing, and nurturing terms. She will see the world through the eyes of simplicity, love, creation, and compassion. Both this and her dress drape onto the ground, connecting her to the earth, as she is both mentally and physically connected to her element and again to her environment, unquote. She is wearing a red gown and red shoes. Red symbolizes passion, power, and love. Underneath the red gown is a white underdress. This is next to her body and a symbol of purity. I wanted to, once again, quote Pam Richards' view of her clothing. Quote, her long-sleeved white underdress shows integrity and wholesomeness. She has no brooch like the other queens, but a plain white neckline. The Queen of Pentacles could have fuss and trinkets galore, but chooses a simple white necklace as she is comfortable without displays of wealth or status. For this queen, wealth and status come from her environment rather than from her flashy display of goods. The white also shows us her honest, sincere nature. The bar across her dress pulls her V-neck in and, with her high neckline, shows modesty. It also forms an upside-down triangle with a bar in her dress, a line through as if it's taken from her shoulders, which is a symbol for earth, her element, worn close to her heart, unquote. The queen is sitting in a lush and beautiful garden that I'll talk more about in a moment. There is a rabbit in the lower right-hand corner of the card. Rabbits are a symbol of fertility as they breed very quickly. It also shows that her garden is hospitable to wildlife. She is holding a pentacle on her lap with both hands. She is gazing at it with incredible love and reverence. The physical world is obviously very important to her. Here's how Liz Dean describes the environment in her book, The Ultimate Guide to Tarot. Quote, she looks down on the golden coin and to the earth itself, earth being her suit element. All around her are symbols of spring and fertility, the hair, lush garden, lush vegetation, flowing water, and flowers. The rose briar is also seen on strength and the magician, which also share the dominant colors of red and yellow for practicality and clear-sightedness. The land is part cultivated and part wild, giving the sense that work is ongoing and that the queen is comfortable in nature and in the domain of her garden or yard. She is pragmatic, cares for her environment, and works hard to achieve long-term success. She is patient and will wait to see the fruit of her labor, unquote. In the background, we see blue mountains. Mountains are a symbol of challenges, and blue is a symbol of intuition and connection with spirit. The sky is yellow. This is the color of the sun and a very hopeful, optimistic, energetic color. Unlike the other queens who are surrounded by a calm, blue sky, the Queen of Pentacles is surrounded by optimism. According to Marcus Katz and Tally Goodwin in their book, Secrets of the Waite-Smith Tarot, the Queen of Pentacles is based on the Queen in King Richard II by Shakespeare, as played by Mrs. F.R. Benson. This makes sense as Pamela Coleman Smith, the illustrator of the card, had a background in theater and relied on it heavily as inspiration for her illustrations. You can see a photo of Mrs. Benson in their book, which of course is copyrighted and I can't show without permission. Trust me that Mrs. Benson bears a strong resemblance to the image on this card. When the Queen of Pentacles appears in an upright position, it can represent someone you know or a part of yourself who is warm, nurturing, and hardworking. The Queen of Pentacles is the most motherly queen with a huge heart. She enjoys creating a loving home, taking care of people, and connecting with nature. In addition to taking good care of others, she also takes good care of herself. The Queen of Pentacles can represent someone who is a parent or like a nurturing parental figure. She loves people, animals, and the natural world. This is a person whose door is always open. She welcomes everyone. There's likely fresh flowers in the living room and a home-cooked meal in her kitchen, likely made from her own flower and vegetable gardens that she weeds and waters daily. The Queen of Pentacles can represent someone who is unpretentious, easy to be with, and down to earth. But she appreciates beauty and enjoys the finer things in life. I see her as the kind of person that buys a beat-up dresser at a thrift store and transforms it into a work of art. I also see her as shopping carefully and only buying things that she can practically use and give her joy. I think her throne is a good example of her appreciation for finer things. All of the other queens have carved thrones, but hers is by far the most ornate. Her environment is by far the most beautiful, too, with all the flowers and foliage. As I mentioned earlier, her clothing is modest compared to her fellow queens, but her environment is far more lush. Her sense of beauty comes from her environment and not from what she is wearing. The Queen of Pentacles can represent a person who is good with money, a good manager, or a business owner. She is financially independent. I recently heard somebody call the Queen of Pentacles to be the self-employed card, which I had never heard before. She uses her money to benefit others and might be a philanthropist. It can signify someone who is practical and hands-on in all parts of her life. She is someone who made her money from working hard and not from inheriting family wealth. She likes working with her hands. It can represent someone who is responsible, stable, and dependable. This is not a person who has mood swings and kicks you out of the house in a fit of rage because you didn't do your chores. She does what she promises and would expect you to be responsible too. If you weren't, she'd deal with it in a calm and fair manner. Finally, when the Queen of Pentacles appears in a reading, it indicates that you need to be practical and deal with parts of your life, such as raising a family, earning a living, and taking care of your health and home. Here's an example of the upright Queen of Pentacles from my life, and it is about my paternal grandmother. Let me tell you a little bit about her, because I am honored to have had such a nurturing woman in my life, and I hope you'll see the connection with the Queen of Pentacles. She was born in 1903 to a pioneer family who settled in Northern Ontario, Canada, where her mother was the local midwife. Although her dream was to become a nurse, her family couldn't afford to pay for education beyond the 8th grade. When she was in her mid-teens, she moved more than 300 miles away to Toronto, Canada, where she became a telephone operator. On her 18th birthday, there was a huge fire in her hometown. Although her family was spared, many were not so lucky, and she returned to help her family recover. She married my grandfather in 1929, and she was the ripe old age of 26. And she went on to have 3 children. My grandfather was a dairy farmer, and they shared a farmhouse with his parents, which, from all accounts, was not easy. In addition to her domestic chores, she also worked hard on the farm and milked cows, fed the animals, and helped with harvesting. When 2 of her 3 children moved hundreds of miles away, it broke her heart and she missed them terribly. She was always a nurturer, and when she was in her late 50s, she fulfilled her dream and became a nurse's aide in a retirement home where she was beloved by all the patients. A few years later, she and my grandfather sold their farm and moved to a nearby town. She passed away just before her 90th birthday. I have so many great memories from my grandmother. She was the ultimate homemaker. She had beautiful flower gardens as well as vegetable gardens and raspberry bushes. We spent many hours on the porch shelling peas or peeling potatoes for dinner. We would often pick blueberries and then come home and she would make pies. Her pies and the rest of her baked goods were amazing and coveted by anyone who tasted them. She did a lot of canning and made her own pickles and canned foods. She was also amazing with needlework. I don't think there was anything she didn't do. In terms of crafts, she could be found knitting, rug hooking, crocheting, and quilting, and I'm sure I inherited my love of sewing from her. Sadly, I did not inherit her enjoyment of cooking or gardening. In a time when women were basically chattels of their husbands, she generated an income by selling her quilts. She was also incredibly musical and played the piano at her church. Most of all, she had the ability to make everyone feel as if they were special and that she was the lucky one to have people visit. She was an amazing cook, and visiting her meant that we were in for delicious meals from homegrown and home-cooked fruits and vegetables. She was truly a Queen of Pentacles. When the Queen of Pentacles appears in a reverse position, it can represent someone who doesn't want to earn their own money or to be self-sufficient. She relies on other people to support her. It can represent someone who does not manage money well. They may not have the skills to manage money, or they may squander their money by making frivolous, extravagant, or inappropriate purchases. It can represent someone who is very materialistic or greedy. They care more about how people view them than actually enjoying their purchases. It can be someone who neglects their family, possibly because they work too much. It can also represent someone who is not very domestic. They don't care about things like cooking, housekeeping, caregiving, or gardening. It can represent someone who is the opposite of warm and welcoming. They could be unfriendly, stubborn, mean, controlling, or inhospitable. It can represent someone who has poor health, or someone who is so busy nurturing others that she neglects herself. It can represent someone who is totally impractical. They have lots of ideas, but none of them have a chance of working. On the other hand, it can represent someone who is so practical that they miss opportunities. For instance, they don't want to take their kids to the beach because they'll be stuck vacuuming sand out of their car once they get home. Here's an example of the reversed Queen of Pentacles from my life, and it is about someone who is not very nurturing. We have a family friend who went to nursing school with my mother-in-law. She never had children of her own, but she had a lot of opinions about how children should be raised. I don't want to engage in stereotypes, but she is British and always seemed extremely aloof and stern. She was also an old-school nurse, and it felt like she was more interested in keeping things running smoothly than providing any kind of compassion to her patients. I think my kids were 4 and 7 years old when we got our first pair of guinea pigs as pets. They were a rescue and our first pets that weren't fish, and my kids loved them so much. My son would race home from school and then watch TV with the guinea pig on his lap. At some point, we visited this woman, and we're talking about how difficult it was to travel because we had to find someone to take care of the guinea pigs. Her comment was, "Why don't you just give them away and buy new guinea pigs when you get back?" At that point, I couldn't think of anyone who was less nurturing. Can you imagine telling 2 little kids to give away their pets in the same way you'd tell them to give away an old t-shirt? I remember leaving her house and my kids saying, "We hate her," and I did not disagree. She does make a good example of the reverse Queen of Pentacles, however. Here are some questions to help you connect with the Queen of Pentacles. Number 1, have you managed to come up with a work-life balance that works in your situation? Number 2, who is a positive maternal figure in your life? Do you provide nurturing for others? Number 3, would other people describe you as warm and welcoming? If not, would you like to be? Number 4, do you appreciate a beautiful environment? What actions can you take to make your environment more beautiful? And finally, number 5, do you feel the need to show people that you have nice things? I hope this video has helped you connect with the Queen of Pentacles. Please join me in the next video, which is the King of Pentacles.